What's up, guys? It's time for another Q&A. Actually, one day out right now in the hotel room, and figured what better time? Go ahead and record this. So it is June 14th. Um, this week's Q&A, I can't remember if I had a topic. Uh, yeah, so did a health related Q&A this week, so things related to health in some way. I know that's pretty broad, but that's okay. So I'll go ahead and get into it. Ideal blood sugar range if fasting from 7:30 p.m. to about 9:30 a.m. and postprandial blood sugar. Let me see. They add some context. If last meal is 7:30 p.m., then what would you aim for in the morning glucose when waking, and then after eating, if eating around 9? Um, well, here's the thing. I mean, blood sugar should baseline within there's different factors. Person's metabolism, how big are the meals, like what are the composition of the meals, um, their pancreatic function, things like that. But I mean, 2.5 to by 3 hours you should definitely be baseline. And in all reality, postprandial blood glucose is not going to be that much different than fasted blood glucose, because I mean that's your baseline environment. So whether if you eat at 7:30 and then you're checking again at, I don't know what they said, something like 9:30 a.m. the next morning, that the time gap doesn't really matter. Yeah, you fasting longer, like if you're somebody that has slightly elevated blood glucose, maybe you're slightly insulin resistant, or you're pushing food really hard, or you're stressed, or your GI is a little off or something, and you do a fast, that may improve it. Um, but in general, a normal healthy person, I mean, you're gonna baseline quick. So I mean, whether you checked it at 9:30 or noon or whatever, I mean, it's going to be pretty close to the same. So that range, it will not be the same for everyone, but we're looking in the 70 to 90 range. I mean, that's a big gap. Uh, I'm not going to get too worried if someone's over 90 short term, especially if we're pushing food hard and things, and keep an eye on it. But you start creeping up to 100 plus for very long, and of course you're becoming insulin resistant, and you're not going to partition nutrients. You have a lot of circulating blood glucose at that point. So, um, you know, your partitioning is not going to be favorable. Um, but yeah, in that range, and then watch your trends over time. It's more of, instead of a set number, it's more of watching the trend. If you notice that you are increasing calories, for example, and you want to keep an eye on blood glucose, and you notice that over the last month your average has climbed 15 points, well, that's you know that's indicative of something. That's giving you some kind of clue that you may be becoming a little more insulin resistant. And it's going to happen to some point. Like, you're not going to, if you come off of a leaning phase and your blood glucose is 70, I mean, it's not going to say 70. That's not going to be your baseline. If you then, 6 months later are pushing 5,000 calories, it's just not going to work. But you can still keep it in a good, reasonable range. Yeah, so the postprandial and the fasting, I mean, they shouldn't be a whole lot different, really. Um, Mechanistically, the slight difference there is that, during the middle of the night, there's hepatic blood glucose production via your liver, for example, and um, your postprandial is mainly just controlled by your pancreas. You eat a meal, your pancreas releases a certain amount of insulin in response to whatever the food is, and then there you go. So slightly different mechanism, but still should be close. Next one, when speaking about OTC health supplements, are there certain items where quality via brand matter and others that are pretty reputable regardless of brand? Um, yeah, I mean, like, certain more expensive ingredients probably have more susceptibility to being like faked or using fillers or just not getting what you paid for or using low quality forms. But I mean, I would usually always suggest using reputable brands. Use a brand that is going to use, I mean, they don't have to use patented forms, but that's a good, you know, that's definitely comforting if they do. If they have some kind of lab analysis. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you could verify quality, but I would always say probably use a reputable brand. Now, the thing is, there are reputable brands that have good quality products that doesn't mean they have to quadruple the cost, so I think that's mistakes. They think, oh, just because it's more expensive that it's better, but that's not necessarily true. And you can also look for products that have combinations of things that you want that might save you money as well. Always plug in Morphogen because that's what they do. So you look at something like Morphoprime, you're getting ubiquinol, very expensive ingredient. You're getting citrus bergamot, another high quality ingredient. You're getting NAC. You're getting Arjuna. I mean, you're getting all of these things that you would want, and it's coming at a much cheaper cost per unit than if you were to buy everything separately. So you can, go that route sometimes as well. Reading both yours and Joe's content, I love trying to learn things. What are you guys looking for with morning heart rate, and what is HRV indicating? I believe recovery. Side note, I have a CPAP, but the Aura Ring has me horny for extra data. Okay. Well, HRV is heart rate variability, and then resting, looking at resting heart rate. Changes in those things could indicate like an overtaxed CNS or too much sympathetic drive. That's essentially what you're looking at now. There are things to consider, like Joe and I have talked about this when you're measuring some of this feedback, there are outside environmental variables that don't make it always 100% consistent. Like if you're measuring HRV when you first wake up, and some mornings you're relaxed and other mornings you're rushed, or you wake up at different times, or you have to pee really bad when you wake up, so you jump out of bed and then you come back and check your heart rate. I mean, all of those things are gonna make it vary. So you gotta keep that in mind. Look at an average, but yeah, recovery. Yeah, I mean that's it's gonna help you. It'll be a piece of biofeedback for recovery and for nervous system health, essentially. Resting heart rate you can use at different times of the day as well. Like you don't have to necessarily just use it when you wake up. You could always use it at different times when you're resting, like right before you go to bed. Or, a lot of people aren't going to stop and check in the middle of the day necessarily, but you could. And then you mentioned the Aura Ring. Yeah, I mean, that's going to measure deep sleep, REM sleep, total sleep, number of times you wake up, all those things. So, I mean, all that stuff is good biofeedback. It's trying to find out what's practical for you personally to track and what is most relevant to you. And we did a really good podcast on this, one of the OPD podcasts. I don't remember which episode for sure, probably 50 something, but where we talked about like trying to figure out which pieces of feedback are probably most relevant to you and what you maybe shouldn't worry about and what would be worth worrying about, like paralysis by analysis type of thing, and figuring out like what's going to work best for you. So I might go back and check that out. That's probably going to give you some good insight. All right, last one. Well, there's two, but they're both related to acne. So kind of lump it together. It's advice to prevent and treat acne, and what does one on TRT do when getting acne. And I assume the first person, maybe it's hormonal related as well. I'm not sure. Maybe I shouldn't assume, but I mean, yeah, with hormone swings, I mean, you're gonna have. That's where a lot of the cases are coming from, or people that are enhanced, that have high hormone environments. A lot of the time there's a DHT component. So the high DHT may cause the sebaceous glands to, become more active, and then you get acne. Think of puberty. A lot of kids get puberty or acne in puberty because their hormones are high. So that will stimulate the sebum. I believe it's called sebum production. But that's what the actual oil is called. Could be wrong on that, but so that's probably the main one. And there are things like a lot of people use DHT blockers. Not now you can use, there's oral options, but a lot of people would use like the Nizoral shampoo that would block the receptor at the skin level. That way it's not just blocking DHT entirely. Though I don't have any data to tell me whether or not any of that goes systemic. Like if it absorbs and goes systemic, maybe some does, but it seems to work pretty well, and it doesn't, completely block DHT because we do need some. So also there's a stress component too. Some of these androgens will, or just some of these enhancement supplements will cause CRH production, corticotropin, I think that's what it is, corticotropin releasing hormone, I think is the full name. And that can also cause that sebum production. So that could be from stress, but also from the androgens themselves stimulating that production. So twofold right there. And then obviously, like if you already are susceptible to these things and you have it, then you're going to need to be more cleanly. I mean, the cleanliness is going to matter too, washing your sheets and not picking at it and not over washing and to where your skin dries out and then you just produce more and more oil to compensate. It's a very fine balance for sure, but maybe trying to pinpoint which component is actually affecting you is a good start. Okay, that's it, guys. I will wrap it up there and talk to you guys next time.